Welcome back, Fic Readers. This is part 8 of the series Fluffy Minty Boy and His Dragon Daddy, called You'll Be Gone by RdmFavCpls. Let's get started. Summary. 12 years, Inko has purposely kept Hisashi away from Izuku, ignoring the court order that says Izuku is supposed to spend most of his time with Hisashi, while she is supposed to have him on weekends. However, someone finally finds him, and Izuku is reunited with his father, but because of the situation, not many people know about it. Izuku is just glad to be with his father finally. Story begins. Ryuko Tatsuma loves her family. She is almost always the first one to go meet any new hatchlings to put her scent on them, to introduce herself to them because she knows herself better than anyone. And if anything happened to any member of her family, she's the scary aunt who will tear apart flesh from bone to save them. She also trusts her nose, instincts, and gut when meeting a potential significant other of a family member, and when her older brother, her favorite brother and closest friend, brought home his at-the-time girlfriend, Tatsuma did not trust her. No one listened to Tatsuma at the time because the girlfriend was so sweet and she made her brother happy like no one else ever did. It seemed like a dragon fairy tale type of romance, and Tatsuma's suspicions only rose. It finally came to head one day when Hisashi had called her in tears. Inko's pregnant, Tats. She's pregnant with my dragonlet, and she firmly believes it's not mine. But I can smell it. The dragonlet is mine, her brother said in hysterics. I don't know what to do. Hisashi, calm down. The first thing you are going to do is get a lawyer. Then that lawyer, if they are doing their job right, will demand a paternity test when the baby is born, and also make a legal document citing that as a dragon parent for a potential dragon child, you are to be there for every appointment, because she has no right until it is proven in the court of law that the dragon parent will be harmful to their dragon child, to keep you away from your child. However, get a lawyer that knows the dragon laws inside and out, because they will be Inko's worst nightmare, and a good chance you'll get full custody of your dragonlet, Tatsuma said. Tatsuma, Hisashi said. She listened as he took a few deep breaths, and then, with a determined voice, her brother spoke again. Tatsuma, will you be my lawyer against Inko? Hisashi said. I was hoping you would ask. I would love to, big brother, Tatsuma said as a dragon smile crept into her face. That was 16 years ago, and it was 12 years ago that they last saw the baby hatchling before his mother kidnapped him and disappeared without a trace. 12 years since Tatsuma decided on being a hero in Japan, keeping her lawyer status a secret as she focused on her hero career. 12 years since Hisashi became an international hero to try and get a better scent for his missing son in hopes of finding him while reuniting other families with their missing children. It was a month ago that she smelled a faint trace of her missing nephew on her beloved work intern student, Hado Nejire. A month ago, she took on 2 more intern students, Uraraka and Asui, and the scent was so fresh that she had to restrain the dragon in her to not come out and question the 2 new interns. Uraraka and Asui were in contact with her nephew, which meant that he was alive and that he was going to UA. She had hope, but she wasn't going to call her brother yet. She needed to focus on this trigger case and the upcoming meeting with Nide's agency. It was a month ago that she saw her nephew for the first time in 12 years, and she didn't know what to do because her emotions were everywhere. Izuku Midoriya was her missing nephew. He was a classmate of her 2 new student interns, and he was part of this case as he had come into direct contact with Overhaul and his daughter. He was alive. She wanted to snarl at Rocklock for being blunt and commenting that if they did the job right, they would have run with the girl. She wanted to show dominance against Nide, who said he was to blame for their actions. But the way his eyes glanced over Togeda with pride, but disappointment when his gaze lingered on Midoriya, like it was the first year's fault. The way Eraser had tensed up at that showed that she wasn't the only one who noticed such blatant scrutiny. She took a deep breath and nearly choked, as the scent of Midoriya was still that of fresh mint, but he still had the underlying smell of a newborn that a dragon kid loses at the human age of 5, and the cold stench of death was strong. He's still just a baby dragon, and severely underdeveloped. She excused herself during the break to make a phone call, dragging Fat Gum with her so he could be included. Tatsuma's going to make that woman pay for everything, and this will be her primary case after the Shihisaka case. Ryuko, this is Edshot, Edshot said as he answered the phone. Edshot, I also have Fat Gum with me because I'm trusting you 2 on a case with me, Tatsuma said. You both know how I've been trying to find my missing nephew? Yes, of course. Did you finally get a lead? Fat Gum said. Better. I found him alive about 30 minutes ago. Tatsuma said. He's the first-year work intern under Sir Night-Eye. I'm asking you, Edgeshot, to investigate everything you can about Midoriya Inko and all her contacts, while Fat Gum and I work the Shihasakai case with Sir Night-Eye. I'm not going to say anything yet to Izuku, for the mere fact that I think he's currently overwhelmed and I need to investigate Sir Night-Eye myself. Huh? Why? Fat Gum said. I think he's blaming Izuku for not taking the little girl. I think he's overall disappointed in Izuku and making sure he knows it, Tatsuma said. He's so underdeveloped in his dragon genes that the smell of death is almost covering everything else, which is why I'm calling now. I'm in, Fat Gum said. Kirishima talks about Midoriya's analysis, and that's why I thought Night-Eye took him in. You will need to get the principal involved, Edgeshot said. Your nephew is one of his students, and he'll be able to find more digital content that can be evidence, and likely find out when and how she was able to kidnap your nephew. I plan on it, especially since I don't think that woman realizes how sacred dragons are in Japanese culture, and I plan on exploiting every law possible to get her behind bars, Tatsuma said with a snarl. This is my last mission. What? Torch, are you sure? You're the top underground hero worldwide, and you're still so young. My sister called. She found my son. I'm retiring as a hero so I can try and reconnect with my son, who's been missing for 12 years. My son, who is the only reason I became an international hero, is to try and find him. Says that he smells like a baby dragon. The rankings had never mattered to me. I just didn't want families to suffer as long as I have without seeing their children, without having closure. What are you going to do for work then? You have no backup plan. Don't know about that, but I do know that I'm going to have to work on being there for my son. I hardly used any money, so I have more than enough saved back to take care of us both for a while. However, my son will always come first, and so I will support his dreams, whatever they are. The Shihasakai raid ended, and Tatsuma kept a close eye on her nephew because watching him with Eri fight Overhaul scared her. That was her nephew doing the impossible of fighting Overhaul that even if All Might in his prime worked alongside Endeavor would have had trouble defeating. That was her nephew unleashing untrained lightning as he fought, lightning that shouldn't even exist because that is dragon lightning, and he's still a baby dragon. His bones cannot handle that right now. She also watched over his room to see if his mother ever visited. No sign of Inko Midoriya, which only added more charges she was pressing. But thankfully, as of right now, Eraserhead was acting as a guardian for him. Tatsuma stared at the door in front of her and took a deep breath as she remembered the conversation she had with her sweet nephew just before she left the hospital to come here. You're my Aunt Tatsuma, aren't you? Midoriya said, stopping her in the hall. You smell like her, at least from the hints of scents I can gather. I am. I'm sure you have a lot of questions, don't you? She said. Yes, but I just need 3 to be answered now. My mom. My memory isn't really playing tricks on me, but she really did kidnap me when I was younger, didn't she? Midoriya said, his hands tightening on the case that held his torn-up hero costume. Tatsuma sighed. She knelt down on one knee to be at his eye level. Yes, she did. I know I really shouldn't be telling you this now, considering Night-Eye's death is still on your mind, and the whole raid. But you deserve to know this. I am on my way with Fat Gum, Edgeshot, and a few police officers to arrest your mother. Midoriya, you are part dragon, and your mother neglected so many things that you needed. I thought so. I always had a feeling that there was something different about me, but whenever I tried to bring it up to Mom, she always brushed it off, Midoriya said, looking down. He looked back at her. What's going to happen to me now? Tatsuma wanted to reach out and wrap her arms around him in a hug, and not let him go. However, the dragon hierarchy would frown upon that, since her brother very much wants to be part of his life. What's going to happen is that you will be staying at your school now, under their temporary guardianship, Tatsuma said. The case is going to be kept quiet due to you being a minor, an apparent target of the League of Villains, and part dragon for your safety. So not many people outside of those directly involved will know that UA will be your temporary home, and while others will think you just wanted to stay at the dorms. In fact, All Might, Eraserhead, and most of the staff won't know about this until it becomes relevant. Your father is tying up some loose ends before he moves here to Japan to be here with you, Tatsuma said with a smile. Mido, Izuku, you're my aunt and your family. Besides, I'm not going to be in Midoriya. Wait, my dad is moving here because I'm here? What? Izuku, your dad has been looking for you for 12 years. This is all you know in a familiar area. You are the most important person to him, Tatsuma said, standing up. If everything goes smoothly, he'll be here in a month. She sighed as she looked at her nephew fondly. I would love to give you some physical affection because I can smell how touch-starved you are, but the dragon parent has to be the stronger scent on their child if they haven't been abandoned. However, as soon as my brother gives me permission, I'm going to hug you and smother you in attention, Tatsuma said. Thank you for everything. Later, would it be okay if I asked you about your quirk? Would he allow me to ask about Midoriya? Aizawa said, walking up to his student. You really need to learn to restrain your quirk-related questions until you are in a better location and time. Ryuku is a popular hero and has some things that need to be done. We also need to be on our way to UA. It's no trouble, Eraserhead, Tatsuma said. I'll always be happy to talk about the different dragon quirks. It's refreshing, really, but I do have another case that needs my attention immediately. She turned to face the underground hero. Don't worry, my work interns from UA will have time to rest after this case. They won't be involved in my next one. None of you limelight heroes know how to relax, Aizawa said with a sigh. Let's go, Midoriya. Tatsuma felt a nudge on her side and looked to see Edgeshot staring at her. You ready? He signed to her. She allowed her draconic smile to show and nodded her head. She looked back at the door and knocked on the door a few times. She waited and heard just a moment come from beyond the door. When the door opened, she stared down at Inko Midoriya, who stared at her with wide green eyes. Those green eyes showed that the portly woman recognized who she was. The green eyes flickered to the two pro heroes, Edgeshot and Fat Gum, who flanked her sides, and the police officers behind them. Tatsuma held up a piece of paper that was an arrest warrant. It's been a while, hasn't it, Inko? Tatsuma said. I hope you don't mind a little surprise home visit, especially since you are under arrest for kidnapping, child neglect, child endangerment, failure to follow a court order, and that's just the laws that affect all humans. Inko focused her attention back on Tatsuma with a glare. Shall I list off all the other laws you broke now, or at the station? Tatsuma said, matching Inko's glare with her own. When the cuffs went on Inko Midoriya, Edgeshot and Fat Gum helped the police gather Izuku's belongings. Tatsuma crossed her arms and stared down at the mother of her nephew. Before I forget, there's also a no-contact restraining order against you, so you cannot contact Izuku at all. But don't worry, my sweet nephew already knows. In fact, he even knew you kidnapped him. His father has already been contacted, and is making plans on moving to be with him. You will only see Izuku on television if he decides to continue the path of being a limelight hero. It's been a month since the arrest of his mother, and being in the care of his school. A whole month of him being just a regular high school student, going into heroics before the news finally got out that he was no longer under his mom's care. News that he would have gladly talked to his fellow classmates about in private. But when did his childhood friend truly ever care about his opinions on matters? The answer was never. Midoriya was honestly surprised that the blowout took a month and not directly after it happened. Deku! Bakugo shouted as he appeared on ground beta, where half their class was waiting for the Heroics Foundation class to start. Aizawa and the skinny version of All Might, Yagi-sensei, stood in front of the students. Why the hell was Auntie arrested a month ago for kidnapping, huh? Everyone's conversations dropped as their eyes moved to stare at the green-haired student, who froze up. His green eyes widened as he took steps away from Ida and kept backing away from the approaching Bakugo. Ka-chan, I really can't talk about it. Even if I could, I wouldn't. I don't freaking care what you could or wouldn't do, Deku, Bakugo yelled, lunging for Midoriya. He grabbed Midoriya by the front of his costume. I want answers now, Deku, and I know that you know about it. So why the freaking hell is Auntie in jail with a wimpy, pathetic-ass public defender instead of All Might's lawyer on kidnapping charges? Young Bakugo, that's enough, Yagi said sternly once he was finally able to find his voice. Let me go, Midoriya said at the same time as he tried to pull Bakugo's hand away. That's enough, Bakugo, Aizawa said, readying his capture scarf. Let Midoriya go this instant. Like hell I will, Bakugo said with a growl. Final chance to answer before I blow your damn face off, Deku. Why don't you also explain as to why your ungrateful ass hasn't contacted her in a month, and why you haven't been trying to get her name cleared? Bakugo, Aizawa said, throwing his capture scarf, but it was too late. Bakugo's fist collided with Midoriya's face. The agonizing sound of bone breaking would have everyone stopping their fight, but it was the way Midoriya scampered backwards after Bakugo's arms were restrained by the capture scarf, forcing him to drop Midoriya. His green eyes looked wild with fear and anger as he clutched his nose with both his hands, blood dripping from between his fingers. A week's worth of suspension, Bakugo, Aizawa said with a snapping tone. She kidnapped me from my father when I was 4, 12 years ago, but thanks for practically making me tell the whole class that I was a kidnapped child. You, of all people, should know what that feels like. At least you had friends who were determined to save you. At least you still know that your family supports you in your dreams. At least you know your family. Midoriya got up and ran from the training ground, lightning dancing on his skin to speed his process up, and it struck out at anyone who tried to get in his way. Change back into your uniforms for today, Aizawa said as he started to loosen his capture scarf. When I come back, it's going to be a refresher course on how to treat a victim of any type of crime, a lesson that was already covered once Bakugo was returned. I'm going to try and find young Midoriya, Yagi said, his glowing blue eyes staring disappointment at the explosive teen. That stupid, useless Deku. He's always trying to one-up me ever since we were little kids. I told him not to apply here, and he freaking applies. Now he's trying to claim that he was also kidnapped? Bullshit! Auntie loves that stupid Deku too damn much, Bakugo yelled. Aizawa's capture scarf tightened around Bakugo as he glared with all might at the student. Each situation is different, Bakugo. Because of that, you are coming with me to see Principal Nezu and discuss this, Aizawa said. Young Bakugo, Midoriya has never tried to outshine you or your struggles. If only you would learn that, then maybe your relationship with him would improve. Principal Nezu blinked as his former student, Aizawa, walked into his office without knocking, carrying Bakugo and his capture scarf. Nezu usually didn't mind when his teachers visited him with a student who needs punishment that he needs to sign off on. However, he was in the middle of an important phone call, which he would have to delay. I'm sorry, Torch. One of my staff members came in with a student, and I'm afraid I must give them my immediate attention. When will be a good time to call you back? Nezu said. Any time will work for me. I don't have much left to pack, just the clothes I'm currently wearing. I really appreciate this, and I promise that as soon as I get checked into my hotel room tomorrow, I'll start working on getting a teaching license, sir, Torch said over the phone before Nezu pressed the button to end the call. Sorry about that. What can I help the two of you with? Nezu said. Bak, that stupid Deku is lying about Auntie kidnapping him. Why am I the one being punished, huh? Bakugo said. Well, that wasn't good. Nezu looked at the clock and frowned. I see. Bakugo, how did you find out about Midoriya's charges? Nezu said, looking back at the explosive team. The old hag called me between classes. Auntie called her and explained everything about how she's in jail for kidnapping and that neither her own son nor his mentor was helping her, Bakugo said. So I confronted Deku before class started while we were waiting for the other slow-ass extras to show up. When he kept dodging the questions or taking too long to answer, I punched him in the face. Bakugo is neglecting to mention that Midoriya's nose is now broken. Deku freaking deserves it for his freaking lies. Paws slammed on the desk, white fur bristling as beady black eyes glared at the student who was now frozen. Are you victim blaming your classmate, Bakugo? Midoriya has purposely been left in the dark over the case of his mother's kidnapping him. 4 pro heroes were in charge of the initial investigation, and I'm one of them, just like I was for when the League kidnapped you, Bakugo. It was in the best interest of Midoriya's health for him to not be in contact with his mother, so I was the one who sought out the no-contact restraining order against her. I was the one who called All Might's lawyers and advised him not to take her case, Nezu said, his tail lashing from side to side. So what's going to happen is that your parents will be called and we will talk. They will be informed of the same information that I told you, but we will be discussing your punishment because Midoriya is a ward of UA right now and you physically assaulted him. Your place in the heroics department is on a fine line right now, but let me make myself clear. Nezu stood on his desk and stared at Bakugo. No matter what type of punishment we decide on with the input of young Midoriya, this will be a black mark on your permanent record, and if we do keep you in heroics, then you will be doing extra classes, and you will be transferred to Class 1B. Are we clear? I said, are we clear, Bakugo Katsuki? Nezu said. Yes, sir. Bakugo said. Excellent, Nezu said, as he nodded at Aizawa, who released Bakugo from his capture scarf. Is there anything else I can do to help you with, Aizawa? No, sir, at least not right now, Aizawa said. He was an underground pro hero, Eraserhead, who valued logic above most things, but right now he was terrified of his boss and wanted to run out of the office. Excellent. Is Recovery Girl taking care of Midoriya? All Might went after Midoriya, so I hope so. I sent the class back to the classroom to do a study hall. I'll make sure to remind the class how to treat traumatized victims, Aizawa said. His eyes glanced at Bakugo, and the laws that are in place to protect the victim, the accused, and everyone else who is involved in the case. Excellent. Please excuse Midoriya for the rest of his lessons today, along with Bakugo. Midoriya is to go see Recovery Girl and Hound Dog afterward. Now, Bakugo, I'm going to brew some fresh tea, call your parents, and while we wait for them to arrive, we will discuss what fabric is best suited for hero costumes. Midoriya was tired. He was so tired of being alone, but he was tired of watching a figurative table tennis match between Aizawa and All Might, fighting over who gets to adopt him. It's been 2 months now, and according to his Aunt Tatsuma and Nezu, his father will be here soon, which is making him more nervous because it's been 12 years. What if his father doesn't love him anymore? What if his father abandons him because his mom must have had a good reason for kidnapping him and moving out of the country? What if his father was a villain? Midoriya, Nezu said, knocking on the door that gives Midoriya his own section of the dorm. May I come in? There is someone who would like to meet you. Ah, yes. Please give me a moment, Midoriya said as he got off the floor, leaving his unfinished homework open on the table, and rushed to the door. He opened the door and smiled. Hello, Prince. Midoriya blinked. He was eye level to the word fancy in English on a white shirt. Clawed hands were clicking against each other as they were being rubbed together. He slowly looked up and stared. Nezu was sitting on the tall man's shoulders. The dark green scales made not only Nezu's white fur stand out, but the toxic green eyes that were getting misty. Midoriya will forever say that Nezu is the bravest soul on the planet, because if Midoriya was a tiny animal, he would not be sitting on the shoulder of a man that was easily taller than All Might, with a dragon head whose nostrils were exhaling smoke, while tiny specks of green flames flickered out of his mouth. Hi, Midoriya said before his eyes widened. Oh my tea, you're the pro-hero Torch, the guiding light hero. You're claimed to be one of the most successful international heroes while still being underground. The man chuckled and moved his dark green scale dragon tail. How did Midoriya miss that? It was like 4 feet long, up in front of him and in an arch position. Yes, I was. I'm retired now. Recently retired. I'm hoping that won't be a problem. Nezu jumped onto the tail as Midoriya blinked. His hero fanboy's mind was still gushing that Torch was at his front door, and he didn't hear a child part of his mind scream, Daddy! At him. Why would retirement be a problem? Midoriya said. Midoriya Izuku, I would like to introduce you to Ryuko Hisashi, who is your father. Ryuko Hisashi, this is your son, Midoriya Izuku, Nezu said. Dad? You're my dad? Midoriya said in shock. He nodded. Yes, can I hug you? Like right now? Please, Izuku, Ryuko said. Oh, yes. Yes, please, Midoriya said as tears fell down his face. As soon as Izuku is pulled into Ryuko's chest, the tears became double waterfalls as Ryuko was also crying. However, Izuku clung to his father, the heat from the dragon just absorbing into Izuku's own body. The nuzzling of his snout against his green curls made him feel safe and sleepy as the chronic pain he's been in slowly vanished. Nezu hopped off Ryuko's tail with a smile and a hum. The tail instantly curled around Midoriya in a strong grip as toxic green eyes stared at the principal. I'll be making my way out. This way, you two can get to know each other and get caught up on the missing 12 years, Nezu said. Thank you so much, Ryuko said, for everything. I had hope, but I never thought I'd be able to hold my son again. Nezu nodded. If I were you, I would introduce yourself to Yagi Toshinori and the Aizawa Yamada couple soon. But mostly Aizawa Shota, as those two teachers have been fiercely protective of Midoriya and fighting with each other over who gets to adopt him, Nezu said. I understand, Ryuko said with a nod. I'll do that soon, but for now, Izuku comes first. My precious fluffy mint paw will always come first. Midoriya let out a choked gasp. He moved his head up to look at his dad. I remember that nickname. You always called me that. And I will always continue calling you that, no matter how old you get, Ryuko said. All Might, also known as Yagi Toshinori, was so proud of his successor, and he would have no problems adopting him as his own son. Unfortunately, he was having problems, which he called Aizawa and the oh-so-secretive Midoriya Hisashi, that doesn't seem to exist. All Might can't wait until he meets Midoriya's father, because if he had a child, he would never stop looking for them, and always made sure to have contact open. But something positive has changed with Midoriya recently. His successor has gotten taller, his muscles have gotten leaner, but he's still just as, if not stronger. His arms look healthy, like he didn't break any bones at all. His fingers are no longer disfigured. Aizawa and All Might both tried to stop Midoriya from punching a rock at 32%, but his arm didn't break at all. Midoriya's speed has gotten faster, and the crackling green lightning can now strike out at opponents and make a dragon-like shape behind Midoriya. When his successor does use the lightning like it was his own quirk, his green eyes change to a toxic green color while the pupils go into slits. It seemed like someone else was mentoring, teaching, helping his successor in ways he never could, and his first thought was Aizawa. Ryuko Hisashi knew that he could never have the same relationship with his son that he did before. He understands that 12 years is a long time, And while the dragon part of his son is flourishing, catching up to the human part, he would never be the father figure that Izuku looked to his mentor as. However, it was Principal Nezu who told him All Might's secret about his quirk and how he gave his quirk to Midoriya, All Might's failing health, and the secret behind One for All and its dark history. That is why he decided to introduce himself to the former hero first, because he matters the most to his son. He knocked at the door of Yagi's dorm room, his tail curling and uncurling around his legs as he held onto a book that looked like it made it through a lot. Hopefully, this will be a nice way to communicate with All Might and make his status as a protective dragon dad known. It's not like he wants to take away the time that Izuku and Yagi share, but he still hasn't had much time with his own son because Yagi keeps inviting Izuku away for supper and training. When the door opened and Yagi looked up, blinking, Hisashi smiled, showing his pointy fangs. "Hello, Yagi-san. I was wondering if I could come in and talk to you about Izuku. He talks about you the most, and I wouldn't mind getting to know his favorite hero more." "Oh, I forgot to introduce myself, didn't I? I had this mental speech all planned out, and I flubbed it. My name is Ryuko Hisashi. I'm a retired hero, just like you." "Okay," Yagi said, tensing up. "And how is it that you know young Midoriya?" Hisashi let out a sigh. Can I come in?" "Absolutely not," Yagi said in a low voice. Hisashi looked at that low voice as a challenge, so he stared at Yagi. He opened the book to the first page, and a clawed finger pointed at a picture of a blue blanket bundle with a tuft of green hair sticking out, being held by clawed hands. The next picture showed a small green curly hair, freckled-faced baby asleep on Hisashi's tail, little hands gripping on it. "As years go by," Hisashi said, flipping ahead a few pages in the back. He stopped on pages that had pictures of 3-year-old Izuku Midoriya sitting on top of Hisashi's shoulder while staring in awe at a giraffe. So do his feelings. Hisashi flipped to the last couple of pages, which Yagi now realized was a baby scrapbook, and with how detailed it was, Hisashi truly cared for his son. But none of the pictures had Inko in it, which made Yagi question how well he knew his successor's mother. A clawed finger tapped a picture of Izuku giving Hisashi a crown while already holding a mug that read #1 Hero Dad, when Izuku was only 4 years old. It must have been taken shortly before he was kidnapped. "Why can't it just stay like before?" Hisashi said. The next page of the book had a missing poster of Izuku Midoriya. The missing picture had a 4-year-old Izuku working on his coloring homework with his tongue sticking out. Above the picture were the words, "Izuku, when will you come back home?" Along the right side of the poster, in a diagonal line, "I won't stop searching for you until you're home." And the left side, also going in a diagonal line, "I'll travel the world to find you." Underneath the poster were the words, "Daddy will always love you, my precious fluffy mint." Yagi took a deep breath as he noticed the drops of water damage on the page, and words weren't part of the original design, but rather water damage from tears. "I'm just a father," Hisashi said, closing the book and holding it close to his chest, just like how Izuku holds his hero analysis for the future notebooks. "And I know I'll never have the relationship that you do with him, or have the same relationship that we had before he was kidnapped. I also know that it will take a lot of time for him to even start caring about me, but I feel jealous." Hisashi stood up straight and stared at Yagi with toxic green eyes that showed determination, the same determination Yagi sees in Midoriya's eyes when he's facing a challenge or in a battle. "Nezu told me about the secret of your past quirk, that you've given it to him," Hisashi said. "It was only after I told him that I knew about it did he confirm that it's true. I understand that the time you two spend together is precious and how dangerous the quirk's secret is, but I would like to ask some things from you. I would like it if you would let me join in on some of the training lessons, because I'm trying to connect with him and understand all that's happened to him in the past 12 years. However, it seems like he cares about you more, because whenever you call or message him, he always goes to you." "Nezu had no right to tell you about One for All," Yagi said, straightening up his shoulders. "And just because you claim to be young Midoriya's father does not mean that I should trust you right away. You could just be someone impersonating him. If anything, I should have known about you spending who knows how long of unsupervised time with him. Midoriya is going through a hard time right now. We both are, with the death of Sir Night-Eye." "Izuku doesn't care about Sir Night-Eye. He cares about you," Hisashi said, holding back a roar. "He told me that your sidekick kept trying to destroy his dreams. Did you know that your precious Night-Eye kept telling him that he wasn't worthy of One for All at least 5 times a day? That Night-Eye had him work harder and longer just to sabotage Izuku's grades so UA would have to pull him out? If it wasn't for Centipeder working for Night-Eye for so long and knowing his style, Night-Eye would have tried to take credit for the hero teams involved with the Shihisakai raid," Hisashi said, the roar coming out at the end. So go to Hound Dog or some other therapist to talk about Sernati, because how can I say I'm happy for you when I'm trying to bring back that happy sunshine hero who will fight for what's right, when I'm the one who's making him confident in his skills and in himself? If you took him away from me, I will personally see to it that you will no longer have any alone time with him. I will accept the hate that Izuku might have for me, but he's already been brought down for 12 years, and I refuse to let him continue feeling like he's not worthy enough because you don't listen to his feelings or allow him to speak badly about a hero or a person. Hisashi took a step forward towards Yagi. This will be your last chance to get your head out of the sand and actually focus on his mental health and self-esteem. He's a child, and it is because of you that he believes Bakugo deserves to still be in Class 1A, that it is his job to save everyone. But when the time comes, who will be there to save my son? Hisashi said. Yagi watched as Hisashi turned and walked away. He clenched his fists together and yelled at the dragon, I don't believe you. I will talk with Nezu over this. But I used to be the #1 hero, the symbol of peace, so I doubt you'll have much more power to truly prevent me from seeing young Midoriya. In fact, I would consider this behavior of yours unbecoming, abusive, and near helicopter. I wonder how that could hold up in court. Hisashi laughed. Don't you know, as the former #1 ranked internationally hero, as a dragon parent, the courts will see that I'm more important. My love and flame is all he needs. Flame, Yagi said as Hisashi left. A glance at the camera that moved side to side showed Yagi that Nezu would not be on his side, and for some reason, Yagi could feel Nezu's disappointment. At least all the other teachers were teaching their classes, so no one could see the loss and defeat in Yagi's blue eyes. You talked to All Might, didn't you, Dad? Izuku asked one night as they both worked on their homework. Hisashi looked down at his son, who was cuddled into his side, the eye bag rivaling that of the brainwashing student. Hisashi hoped they would go away soon. I did. He's been calling you away for far too long and often. You've been overworking yourself to where you barely have time to do your schoolwork, socialize with your friends, or even sleep, Hisashi said as he ran clawed fingers through the green curls. I also know he's been venting to you about Sir Night-Eye and not letting you do the same. Gray smoke blew out of Hisashi's mouth, and Izuku laughed. He didn't need to push you so hard and so fast in your training, but without a clear confession nor an obsession, you did what so many other people tried to do. You took his heart, and you have his full attention, Hisashi said, as his clawed fingers traveled to Izuku's sides and started to tickle him in the ribs. You're an exception to All Might. Aren't you the luckiest of all? Aizawa was coming back from his patrol with his senses on high alert. The League of Villains hadn't made any moves. Criminal activity has gone down, which is usually a sign that a storm is brewing in the criminal world. Then the whole situation with Midoriya, and Aizawa really wants to talk to some people. The first person would be Sir Night-Eye, as the investigation that Ryuku started with Night-Eye's behavior with Midoriya. Even though the hero was now dead, he did so much damage to his problem child that it's a wonder the kid seems to be even more bright than before. They were lucky that Togeda never lost his true self to be an All Might clone. The second person would be Inko Midoriya, because what good reason did she have for kidnapping her own son? What good reason did she have to get the Bakugo family involved, knowing the youngest Bakugo was trying to convince her son to talk to her? Nezu must have his reasons for the no-contact restraining order, otherwise he wouldn't have had one made. However, if Aizawa had to guess, it was something to do with how much his problem child had grown in such a short amount of time. It was like she had purposely kept something vital from her son on purpose. Then, the third person, All Might himself. However, it seemed like that was to be done tonight, as Yagi Toshinori stood by the entrance of UA. Ah, Eraserhead, are you done with your patrol for tonight? Yagi asked as the Class 1A home teacher jumped in front of him. I am. Why? Aizawa said, crossing his arms. Have you claimed defeat and allowed me to adopt Midoriya next week if his father doesn't show himself? I would never, Yagi said before he shook his head. So, his father hasn't introduced himself to you yet? That's interesting. You've met his father? Yes. Tall dragon and toxic green eyes. Aizawa rolled his eyes. Nezu was talking to Torch when I brought Bakugo to his office, but that's impossible. To become an international hero, you must not have a spouse or kin. It's one of the laws. However, there are a few exceptions. You know this hero. He's a role model of mine of sorts. Just give up, Yagi. Give up? This is the third attempt you've made to try and convince me that his father had been found. Yagi spluttered and tried to defend himself. Now, Aizawa, listen here. So 1, 2, 3, you're out. Aizawa said, Isn't that how that American baseball saying goes? By now, would you agree that you're the only enemy? Because if you would quit interfering with me trying to talk to him about adopting him into my family, we would be on better terms. My husband loves it, Hitoshi is fine with it, and Eri loves the idea of being her hero's little sister. Nothing else is really stopping me except for the missing father, and you're the only reason why he's not staying with me. I feel like you're teasing me, Yagi said, narrowing his blue eyes. I am being serious. His father introduced himself as Ryuko Hisashi, a relative of pro-hero Ryuko. Doubtful. Dragons are protective of their families, and I'm sure she would have made it known that Midoriya was in fact her nephew. Besides, Midoriya has nothing linking him to being part dragon, Aizawa said as they walked to the teacher dorms. Honestly, Yagi, what if I told you everyone, that you're starting to go crazy? It would be a rumor just for fun. Then wait a week and I'm sure you'll be gone. Aizawa, you will not be able to adopt young Midoriya, Yagi said. This is not a laughing matter. Just wait a week and I'm sure you'll be gone. Especially after I talked to Nezu and Midoriya about it. Especially since you convinced Midoriya to give Bakugo another chance at being a hero when he doesn't deserve it. Not after how he attacked Midoriya and treated Midoriya about Midoriya also being kidnapped. Aizawa looks up at the retired pro-hero with a disappointing stare. It makes me wonder, how many times did you intervene to keep Bakugo out of true trouble, and how many times did you not intervene because you wanted Midoriya to prove something to you? Honestly, Yagi, I know you're learning, but if you have selected Midoriya to be your successor, please quit sending him and everyone else mixed signals. The next person Ryuko Hisashi has to meet was Izuku's favorite teacher and second favorite hero in Japan, who just happens to be Hisashi's overall favorite hero, Aizawa Shota, or better known as Eraserhead. Hisashi was beyond nervous. It wasn't like he was going to ask for an autograph, yet, but really just to talk to him, father-to-father type talk. Mythical types of quirks, especially the mutation kind, where his quirk doesn't care and doesn't come from either parent, are so hard to understand that Hisashi wants them to know that he's there to help because dragons and unicorns have always been closely linked, and he has a feeling that little Eri and Izuku have imprinted on each other since they first met. It's why they are so close to each other, why they see each other as siblings. Hisashi gently slaps his cheeks as he got lost in his thought. He needed to focus and not make a fool out of himself in front of Eraserhead. He didn't want to embarrass himself or Izuku. Izuku would never forgive him. Never. Hisashi didn't want that, as he already pushed it with all might. You're super tall, a little girl said. Hisashi looked down and saw the most adorable and cutest girl in the whole world. She had her neck craned as far back as she could, her light blue wavy hair making a small puddle on the floor as her cranberry eyes stared wide-eyed at him. Hisashi chuckled. Yes, I am. But you are also super small, he said. How would you like to be this tall for a while? Zawa says I shouldn't talk to strangers, but you share the same warmth as Deku, and I don't feel scared, she said. Oh, you know Deku? She nodded her head. Yes, he's my hero. This girl was precious. Well, Deku is my son, and he's been talking a lot about a beautiful unicorn princess named Eri. He claims she's the purest. He spun around in a circle, his arms outstretched to emphasize his next words. In all of Japan! He turned back around and faced her. Do you perhaps know where this fair lady is? It's me, Eri said with stars and tears in her eyes and the biggest smile on her face. Well, I must have luck on my side, he says. He moved his tail in front of Eri. You are far too low to the ground for me to bow down to. So, if the fair maiden would be so kind as to sit on my tail, then I can raise her up to bow to her properly, and maybe have a chance to kiss the lady's hand. When Aizawa turned the corner, he was not expecting to see his foster, soon-to-be adopted, daughter in the air, sitting on a dark green scaled tail. He was also not expecting to see the owner of the tail bowing to her as she laughed. Deku is as kind as he is wise, the tail owner said, for you are as pure and beautiful as he says. Aizawa is not going to let that slide, as this tail owner was flirting with his daughter. He activated his quirk to help with the intimidation factor and used his feared teacher voice. Who the hell do you think you are flirting with my daughter? Aizawa said. Zawa, Eri said with glee. Look how tall I am. The man stood up straight and turned around to face Aizawa. Aizawa was not going to blink at the fact that this man was 8 feet tall, or that he was the international pro-hero Torch, or that the man moved his tail so Eri was closer to his head. Princess Eri, is that really Eraserhead, the coolest hero in the land? The man said. Nuh-uh. Deku is the coolest hero in the land, Eri said. But Deku has already been confirmed part of your circle of heroes, and he's my son. I can't be judging my own son, as I might be too kind to them, especially when I want to surprise my son. Then yes, Zawa is the second coolest in the land, Eri said. Aizawa blinked and watched as the tail moved. making Eri slide backwards on it a little bit. He got his capture scarf ready, but didn't move as the tail changed to a sloped angle, causing Eri to slide down as she laughed. Toxic green eyes watching her in a fond expression that seemed familiar but also sad. Izuku always loved using my tail as a swing or slide when he was younger, the man said. The green eyes moved to look back at Aizawa before he bowed to him. Thank you so much for protecting my son, Izuku Midoriya, as much as you have. He stood back straight. I know you were such an amazing hero, but to actually hear Izuku say you were his favorite teacher, I may have, Hisashi said and started to scratch the back of his head, fanboyed a little. Okay, a lot, but I'm trying not to embarrass myself because I don't want to embarrass Izuku, but you're like so cool. There were so many times I wanted to come to Japan for a mission just to be on the same team as you, and oh god, I'm rambling now, and I really need to shut up, but at the same time, I really need to talk to you. However, I can't talk to you now because I may be kind of in a fanboy mind now, and I really need to be in a father's mind. Hisashi took a deep breath. Let's not tell anyone about me talking a mile a minute just to try and stop myself from asking for an autograph. Honestly, how will they know what happened? Like, it isn't completely out of character for me to talk for a long amount of time, so if you can't speak a word at all, I should be fine. Do you not have lungs? Aizawa said, cutting in. Because you may think you are going to be walking away, but I'm not letting that happen. Toxic green eyes stared at Aizawa with a wounded dog look, and Aizawa was glad he was more of a cat person. Why not? Hisashi said. Simple. You haven't introduced yourself. You claim to be Midoriya's father with zero proof. You know who I am, and you, as far as I'm aware, are on UA grounds while not being a staff member. It's a work in progress, Hisashi said. I've been working on my teacher's license with Izuku, but now that Yagi lied a little louder about what it takes to be a hero to Izuku without me knowing about it, Izuku's trying to be a better hero and help Bakugo get over his issues. It's not like Izuku doesn't already have enough with his own issues and everything else going on. Oh, not a fan of All Might? Aizawa said. I was. But would you still be a fan if you knew what he told Izuku when they first met, or thought that a good worked-out plan was to clean up some beach for 10 months? Hisashi said. Anyway, I also would like to talk to you about Eri, because Izuku and her are already imprinted on each other, and, as it turns out, dragons and unicorns are closely connected. Your name first, please. Oh, Ryuku Hisashi, but also known as Pro Hero Torch. I retired as soon as my sister called saying she found Izuku, Hisashi said. His clawed hands turned into fists. Smoke and green flames escaped from his mouth and curled upwards. 12 years she stole from me, and she almost killed Izuku because she refused to acknowledge that Izuku needed me more than her to grow. Oh, I can't wait to see Inko fall. Maybe All Might didn't lie this time about Midoriya's father, but Aizawa wasn't going to complain. Dragons that are protective of their young are always good allies, and the fact that Problem Child's missing father turned out to be one of Aizawa's role models, well, Aizawa surely wasn't going to complain, especially if he has advice to give him about Eri. I don't have patrol Friday night. My husband has the night off from the station. Why don't you and Midoriya come over for supper? Midoriya, Hitoshi, and Eri can do whatever while we talk. Hisashi blinked. Why do I feel like I'm being threatened? Eri giggled as she took Aizawa's hand. It's because you are, she said. We will see you Friday, Aizawa said. Come by after school. Problem Child knows the way. Hisashi was nervous, but he had to look calm. He had faith in his sister's abilities as a lawyer. In fact, she won the first case against Inko, and he would have had full custody of Izuku, while Inko had to have supervised visits. But 16 years ago, he still had feelings for her. He allowed her to have Izuku on the weekends with part custody because he trusted her, believing that she wouldn't hurt their son. But after 4 years, she betrayed him. Now, he had nothing but a frozen dead heart as he sits on his sister's side of the courtroom. The pro heroes, Fat Gum, Principal, and Edgeshot were sitting next to him, and he wondered if his sweet sister would mind if he investigated Edgeshot a little more, as he could smell the attraction between the two. He moved his eyes to glance over at the other side of the courthouse, where those who supported the defendant or couldn't sit on the prosecution side because it was already filled were seated. He saw the Bakugo couple sitting over there, but he looked over to Inko, who was glaring at him. He wanted to glare right back, but he kept his eyes and face neutral. It wouldn't look good if he let his dragon side loose minutes before the trial continued. The doors opened, and he turned his attention back to the front. This is his sister's battle now. The defense have already played all their cards, and from the way his sister smiled, the prosecution haven't even played their whole deck yet. The prosecution would like to call Midoriya Inko to the stand, Tatsuma said. Hisashi took a deep breath. He needed to hear the answers from her as to why she took Izuku away from him. Her lawyer had warned being called to the stand would be unavoidable. that her reasonings for everything she had done would be called into question. But he was furious that her latest stunt of crying to Mitsuki about Izuku not helping her about her charges had severely damaged their chance of winning, and that she had destroyed every single chance of winning that he had planned. She still had tricks up her sleeve. Inko Midoriya couldn't lose her temper. She had to continue playing the part of an over-emotional protective mother, and how she had done what she thought was right for her son. "Midoriya-san," Tatsuma said, 16 years ago, when you first found out that you were pregnant with your son, you tried to keep his father out of his life. You even claimed at the time that Izuku was not his father's child, implying that while you were in a relationship with Ryuku-san, you were cheating on him, correct? Inko gritted her teeth. "Yes, that's correct," she said with a nod. "Did you or did you not try to keep Ryuku-san from coming to the appointments?" "Yes, I did, because I believed he wasn't my son's father," Inko said. I didn't want to burden him with a child that wasn't his." Tatsuma walked across the floor of the courtroom, her heels tapping against the marble floor. "That's interesting. When you were in college in America, you were studying mutation quirks, specifically those of dragon types or draconic backgrounds, correct?" "Yes." "Objection! The prosecution is talking about the time before the kidnapped child was even born," the defense lawyer said, not seeing that he fell into her trap. "Sustained. Prosecution, get to the point," the judge said. Tatsuma walked to her table and grabbed 2 stacks of papers. "The point is that Midoriya-san could be considered an expert on draconic quirks and families for someone who is an outsider," Tatsuma said. She held up one of the papers. "Here are 2 papers that Midoriya-san wrote for her college thesis. This first paper details specific traits about dragon quirks. One of these traits was that a dragon parent, specifically the father, can tell when their partner is pregnant. She also knew that Ryuku-san could tell that he was the father, meaning she purposely tried to keep a dragon parent away from their child even before they were born. The second paper details the qualities that children with dragon parents need. This paper explains the behaviors and actions that dragon parents will and would have with their kin," Tatsuma said. "Objection! The prosecution is rambling. 14 years ago, Midoriya-san lost custody of her son because she tried to keep Izuku away from his father with the excuse that she couldn't stand by seeing her baby boy constantly being burned by his father's flames, even knowing that the flames were helping her son grow and stay alive." The judge slammed down the gavel to get the courtroom to settle down as it erupted into shocked whispers. "Order in the courtroom! Prosecution, what is the meaning of this? Midoriya-san has tried to fool the courtroom before by playing an over-concerned parent. She has tried 2 times already to keep Ryuku-san away from their child, so without a clear confession from Midoriya-san, I just thought that it would be wise to warn the court that she might try and say that she was doing what any other mother would to save their child. So tell me, Midoriya-san, how many mothers do you know would keep their child away from the basic needs that they know they need to survive and grow?" Inko remained silent. There was no way now she could pull off the caring parent act. She was trapped, and the way that Tatsuma was looking at her, Inko was not going to win this case. "Tell us, Midoriya-san, what type of mother does that to their child?" Tatsuma asked. Inko glared at her. "I can. A neglectful type of parent. So why do this? Why be so obsessed with keeping Ryuku-san away from his son? Why? Especially when Ryuku-san gave you the chance to spend time with him unsupervised on the weekends," Tatsuma said. Silence. "Midoriya-san, answer the question," the judge said. "Could it be that you were obsessed with being the better parent?" Tatsuma said. Inko laughed. "Izuku wanted nothing to do with me," she said. "He absolutely adored his father, and everyone could tell it wasn't an obsession." Inko glared at Hisashi. "At such a young age, you took his heart, Hisashi. You had his full attention. And he wouldn't pay attention to me, or what I asked him to do. I only wanted Izuku to be a science experiment to see if a dragon child could survive without knowing that their missing parent was part dragon and believed that they were abandoned. Somehow, I had him believe that All Might was his favorite hero, and then you debuted as Torch on the international level trying to find him. All Might was still his favorite hero, unless you were involved." Inko was no longer speaking to the court, as she had just focused on Hisashi. Hisashi had smoke coming out of his nostrils, and he was angry. He was angry at her for his precious son, his precious fluffy mint ball, was just born for her to test something so despicable. "You're an exception. Aren't you the luckiest of all, Hisashi?" Inko said with a laugh. Hisashi got up and left the courtroom. He could see the smoke becoming darker, and the itchy, burning flame at the back of his throat got stronger. He had to calm down before he did something he regretted. He didn't see the shocked and angry stare that Mitsuki Bakugo was giving Inko, or the tear-stained face on her husband. Hisashi really needed his Minty cuddles, but he had to see this through. So 1, time was before he was born. 2 was from Izuku being born till he was 2, and you had to follow the court order. And then 3, from Izuku being 4 till now. You did all this for an experiment? By now, would you agree that you're the only enemy, Inko? Would you also agree that the reason why his quirk came in so late, why his bones were so easily broken, why he seemed so malnourished, was because you're the only reason why he wasn't with his father? Even knowing prior to being pregnant over how much a dragonlet needs their dragon parent? Satsuma said, letting the fury in her voice. No child deserves to be used or even born just to be a science experiment. Everyone in Japan knows that you do not get on the wrong side of the pro-hero principle, not with his past being what it is. But everyone also knows how lucky they are that he didn't go villain mode. What hardly anyone knows is that the principal does have connections to villains, including All Might's rival. Netsu and All for One decided it would be for the best to temporarily cut their relationship as tea and chess buddies so Yagi wouldn't try to pull Midoriya away when they both wanted him to grow. Netsu has always favored Midoriya as a student of his, and All for One because Midoriya now held his brother's quirk. Netsu was going to talk to All for One tonight because Inko Midoriya didn't deserve a hero. No, she deserved the darkest people to carry out her punishment. If I told you someone, everyone, in the League of Villains about you, a rumor just for fun then, Netsu thought. I'll just wait a week and I'm sure you'll be gone, especially since Compress, Toga, Dabi, and Spinner all love Midoriya. Hisashi couldn't believe it. He passed, he got his teaching license, and now he's a teacher's assistant for UA. Soon, he'll be a full-fledged teacher at UA, but now he can spend more time with his precious son. Not only that, but Tatsuma called, and they won. Inko Midoriya will be spending the rest of her life in jail. She can't come near her son ever again. She lost all rights as a parent, so if she somehow became pregnant again, she won't get to keep the child or make any decisions over their health. Now he just needs to find an apartment for them during breaks and introduce himself to Izuku's friends and classmates. But now he just wants to celebrate with Izuku. Hisashi walked out of the dorms that he's been staying at and made his way towards Class 1A dorms. School was almost done for the day and he wanted to greet Izuku with good news. Was Izuku really worth all the things I did to get here? Yes, Izuku was worth it all. This is my second chance at being a father. I've missed out on 12 years of being his father and friend. Or am I just obsessive over Izuku? If I am, it's not my fault. I'm just following instincts of keeping Izuku close. After all, he was so close to death. The dragon in me is just being protective. I can't help it. After all, I spent 12 years helping other families reunite, giving children a good home, Hisashi thought. He stood in front of Class 1A dorms, bouncing on the balls of his feet and tail. Tonight should be all about celebrating, so he pulled his phone out and redialed his sister's number. Hisashi, Tatsuma said as she answered the phone, I think we should celebrate tonight, and I think it's safe for you to finally introduce yourself to Izuku as his aunt. I haven't talked to him yet, but either way, I want to introduce Izuku to his aunt and maybe his aunt's boyfriend, Hisashi said. I would also like to meet the man behind the hero edge shot. Hisashi, do you really mean it? Tatsuma said, excitement in her voice. Of course, Tots. I mean, look at the scums without charm that we both took down trying to find Izuku. Look at the tears of who we've saved. We're both heroes. We both know little 4-year-old Izuku would be proud of us. So, yeah, this is what I want. Tatsuma laughed. Just text me where we're having supper tonight and we'll be there, she said. I will, Hisashi said as he spied Izuku walking towards the Class 1A dorms. He was between a boy with blue hair and glasses, a young girl with rosy cheeks, another girl with long dark green hair, and a boy with red and white hair. I spy my fluffy mitt, so I need to go and tell him the news. See you tonight. He hung up and put his phone away just as the girl with earphone jacks asked the girl with rosy cheeks a question. He ran towards the group at full speed. He was surprised that a lot of students noticed him, but he was faster. Just as fire came at him, he grabbed Izuku with his tail and tossed him in the air. Izuku laughed as he was in the air with a childlike laugh. Whoa, yeah, Izuku said, like he was on a roller coaster. Hisashi dodged the Bakugo kid's blast. A kick came from a couple of students and ice daggers before he caught Izuku in his arms. His heart fluttered at the giggles that his son gave as he was caught. 1, 2, 3, Hisashi said before throwing Izuku back in the air. He used his tail to catch Izuku as he came back down. We won, Fluffy Mid. You're stuck with me now. Now would you agree to allow me to introduce you to your aunt formally? I would love to, Izuku said. Midoriya, you know this mountain of a man? A pink-skinned girl said. Would you agree that Inko's the only enemy? Hisashi said, pressing his forehead against Izuku's own forehead. Huh? What the hell did you say about Auntie, you overgrown gecko? Bakugo yelled, exploding forward only to be pushed back by a green lightning strike. And she's the only reason you're not with me as a Ryuku, Hisashi said. So would you be willing to change your last name back to Ryuku? I've been waiting for you to ask me that for a week, Daddy, Izuku said. Wait, so is All Might really not your father? The dual-colored hair boy said. Izuku laughed as Hisashi let him down. No, Todoroki, he isn't. This is my father, who I've met for the first time in 12 years a couple of months ago, Izuku said. Ah, Hisashi said, so you're Todoroki. Tell me, what would happen if I told you someone, everyone, with the right connection and power, a rumor, just for fun, about Endeavor? A rumor that might destroy his reputation. What would you do? Celebrate? Why? Todoroki said. Then wait a week and I'm sure he'll be gone, Hisashi said. His toxic green eyes narrowed as his tail coiled up. His tail uncoiled quickly, pinning a tiny, he's pretty sure Aerie was taller than this student, boy that had grapes for hair, on the ground. You did not just try to peek up at the pink-skinned homegirl's skirt, right? Hisashi said with a growl, green flames curling upward towards his snout, as the pink girl let out a yell and went behind Midoriya. No, I would never, the boy said, struggling to try and escape the tail. I can smell lies coming off you, boy, Hisashi said. He used his tail to pick up the grape boy and held him at Hisashi's eye level. Just wait a week, and I'm sure you'll be gone. Nezu took a sip of his tea and watched as Hisashi dropped Mineta almost 8 feet. Yes, hiring Ryuku Hisashi, former international hero Torch, as a soon-to-be teacher for UA was the right move, not only to keep his students safe, but to make a statement to other hero schools and villains that the staff at UA will always do its best to keep their students safe. Nezu took another sip, especially since the League of Villains have a new target in a country outside of Japan, a specific institution of science that not only did a certain Inko Midoriya graduate from, but also worked for. This tea is absolutely divine, Nezu said to his empty office with a sadistic hum. And that was part 8 of the series Fluffy Minty Boy and His Dragon Daddy, called You'll Be Gone by RdmFavCpls. I had a little bit of an issue with the wording in this one because it is a song fic. It is also just so long at over 11,000 words, making it the longest one in this series. I love how Hisashi was fanboying and rambling a lot like Izuku does. Also, fear the all-powerful rat god Nezu. I hope that you enjoyed it. Don't forget to go and leave kudos for the original author, and I hope that you join me again next time.